Imagine you need to travel somewhere hundreds of miles away, a place you've never been, a place nobody you know has ever been. You have no map, no compass, no phone, no road, not even a trail. Just your eyes, your instincts, and the world around you. Most of us would be completely lost in hours. But 70,000 years ago, small groups of humans did exactly this, and somehow, over tens of thousands of years, they found their way across every single continent on Earth. No tools, no technology, no written directions of any kind. So how did they do it? The story of human travel starts in Africa, specifically in East Africa, around 300,000 years ago, where Homo sapiens, modern humans, first appeared. For thousands of years, they didn't go far. They hunted. They gathered. They learned their local land deeply, every river, every valley, every seasonal pattern. But around 70,000 years ago, things changed. The climate shifted dramatically. Parts of Africa became drier. Food sources thinned out. Competition for resources grew intense. Small groups, sometimes just a few dozen people, began pushing outward beyond the edges of the land they knew. They moved north and east, through what is now Ethiopia, toward the coastlines of the Red Sea. And that's where the real challenge began. Here's the question most people never think to ask. If there were no maps, no landmarks they recognized, no one who'd been there before, how did they know which direction to go? The answer is that they read the world itself like a living map, and they were extraordinarily good at it. The first tool they used was the night sky. The stars don't move randomly. The North Star sits fixed in the sky, always in the same position. Ancient humans learned that moving toward it meant moving north. Moving away meant moving south. Every clear night, the sky handed them a compass for free. During the day, the sun did the same job. It rises in the east. It sets in the west. At its highest point midday, it always sits to the south in the northern hemisphere. This gave them consistent directional reference, every single day, without fail. But perhaps their most reliable navigation tool was something even simpler: rivers. Water always flows downhill, toward the sea. Follow a river and it will lead you to lowlands, to food, to other animals, and eventually to coastlines. This is why, when archaeologists trace ancient migration routes, they almost always follow major river systems. The rivers weren't just a source of water, they were the roads. Then there were the animals themselves. Massive herds of mammals, mammoths, bison, wildebeest, migrate along the same seasonal routes year after year. These routes naturally avoid impassable terrain, deadly cliffs, and waterless deserts. Ancient humans quickly learned that following the herds meant following a path that had already been tested by nature. And finally, perhaps the most underrated tool of all, oral memory. Ancient humans had no writing, so instead, knowledge of the land was memorized and passed down verbally, across generations, with extraordinary precision. Elders would describe terrain in detailed spoken instructions. Follow the wide river until you see twin peaks on the horizon, then walk toward the sunrise. These mental maps were treated as sacred knowledge and passed from parent to child for thousands of years. They weren't guessing. They were navigating, just with a completely different set of instruments than we use today. Now, reading the land is one thing, but what about the ocean? Because at some point, the land ran out. Archaeological evidence tells us that by 65,000 years ago, humans had already reached Australia. And this is remarkable, because Australia has never been connected to mainland Asia by land, not even during the Ice Age. That means a group of ancient humans built some form of watercraft, likely a basic raft or a hollowed-out log canoe, launched themselves into open ocean, and crossed at least 90 kilometers of open water toward a landmass they couldn't even see from the shore. On the open ocean, the navigation methods shifted. They tracked the position of stars at night. They watched where the sun rose and set each morning. They observed which direction seabirds flew, because birds almost always fly toward land at dusk to roost. They read the patterns of ocean swells, which travel in consistent directions and change when land is nearby. Even the color of the water and the types of clouds forming on the horizon gave them clues. These weren't accidents. This was deliberate, intelligent, planned exploration. Most ancient travel, however, wasn't across water. It was on foot, slow, generational, relentless walking. From the Middle East, groups spread into Central Asia and Europe. By 45,000 years ago, humans had pushed deep into Siberia. Temperatures minus 40 degrees, permafrost underfoot, predators everywhere. To survive and keep moving in these conditions, they engineered real solutions. They developed layered clothing stitched from animal skins. They built portable shelters using mammoth bones and hides. They carried tools for making fire wherever they stopped. And then, around 15,000 to 20,000 years ago, some of those Siberian groups kept going northeast, onto a vast landmass that no longer exists today. During the last ice age, so much of the world's water was frozen in glaciers that sea levels dropped by up to 120 meters. This exposed a massive landmass connecting modern Siberia to modern Alaska, a place scientists call Beringia. At its widest, Beringia stretched over 1,000 kilometers across, broader than France. Groups of humans, following mammoth herds, reading the stars, tracking the rivers, crossed it into a continent no human had ever touched, North America. And within just a few thousand years, their descendants had walked all the way down to the southern tip of South America, 15,000 miles, on foot, across 2 continents, with nothing but the world around them to guide the way. When the Ice Age ended and sea levels rose again, Beringia disappeared beneath the ocean, and that ancient highway was gone forever. In roughly 60,000 years, starting from one continent with no technology, no maps, and no roads, humans covered the entire Earth. They did it by reading the stars, following rivers, tracking animals, memorizing landscapes across generations, building boats from trees, and crossing open ocean on nothing but skill and courage. They weren't wandering, they were wayfinding, using every signal the natural world offered them, and reading it with a precision that honestly puts our GPS dependency to shame. Every mountain range they crossed, every ocean they paddled into, every frozen plain they walked through, it was an act of intelligence, endurance, and trust in the knowledge their ancestors had handed them. And every single one of us, no matter where on this planet we were born, is here because they got it right. The next time you open Google Maps, just remember, your ancestors mapped the whole world first. They just did it inside their heads.